Next couple of slokas. Loka Dharma, Veda Dharma, Deha Dharma Karma, Laja Dharya, Deha Sukha, Atma Sukha Marma, Dusyaja Arya Pata, Nija Parijan, Swajane Karaye Yata, Tadana Bhartsana, Sarva Tyaga Kari Kare Krishnera Bhajana, Krishna Sukha Hetu Kare Prema Sevana. Social customs, scriptural injunctions, bodily demands, fruitive action, shyness, patience, bodily pleasures, self-gratification, and the path of Varnashram Dharma, which is difficult to give up. The gopis have forsaken all these along with their families and suffered their relatives' punishment and scolding, all for the sake of serving Lord Krishna. They render loving service to him for the sake of his enjoyment. And then finally, text 170. I'll say the line and then you can repeat. Ihake kaiye Krishne dridha anuraga swacha dhauta vastre yaiche nahi kona dhyaga. Next.
I thought Vishnu Gadapu was on. No?
Vishnu Gadapu, you want to say the verse?
Okay. Ihake kahiye Krishne dridha anurag swachha dhauta vashtre jaiche nahi puna.
I can't hear it. Is anyone hearing it?
I am.
Am I on mute or something?
I heard him though. So
Pariksha, can you hear?
yes, I can hear you, and I heard him.
I'm not hearing. I don't know what it is.
Check.
I know I'm not on mute.
Wow.
Okay, there we go. I'm sorry. My system was on mute.
Okay. So what should we do now? Vishnu Gadapu will repeat it? Or?
Yeah, repeat it.
Ihake kahiye Krishne dridha anurag swachha dhauta vashtre jaiche nahi kona dag.
Perfect. Next.
Ihake kahiye Krishne dridha anurag swachadata vashriyate nahi punadaga. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? Okay, word for word. Ihake, this, kahiye, I say, Krishna, in Lord Krishna, dridha, strong, anuraga, love, swacha, pure, dauta, clean, vastre, in cloth, yache, just as, nahi, not, kona, some, dhaga, mark. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Now I apologize, I'm not in my normal place, so I have to make adjustments here. That is called firm attachment to Lord Krishna. It is spotlessly pure, like a clean cloth that has no stain. The author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita advises everyone to give up all engagements of sense gratification and, like the gopis, dovetail oneself entirely with the will of the Supreme Lord. That is the ultimate instruction of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. We should be prepared to do anything and everything to please the Lord, even at the risk of violating the Vedic principles or ethical laws. That is the standard of love of Godhead. Such activities in pure love of Godhead are as spotless as white linen that has been completely washed. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur warns us in this connection that we should not mistakenly think that the idea of giving up everything implies the renunciation of duties necessary in relation to the body and mind. Even such duties are not sense gratification if they are undertaken in a spirit of service to Krishna. So the verse is saying about firm attachment to Lord Krishna and is spotlessly pure, like a clean cloth that has no stain. And we know if you visualize a white cloth and you drop one small drop of black ink or any other substance, it stands out. So this firm attachment, spotlessly pure, like a cloth that has no stain. Very beautiful phrasing. So our Krishna consciousness is meant to be pure. And I say that cautiously, meant to be pure. Whether we're pure now, at this stage, pure on the highest level, that's subjective. We can test ourselves to see how we're advancing. Srila Prabhupada mentions that in chapter 13 of the Bhagavad Gita, verses 8 through 12, the principles of knowledge that Krishna says, anything beyond these principles that he mentions in those verses is ignorance. And then Srila Prabhupada says, in defining humility first, pridelessness, and then at the end of one paragraph, he says that one can have a test to see how he's advancing in spiritual life. And using those principles mentioned in verses 8 through 12 of chapter 13, that's how you can judge. So we can do our self-analysis to see how we're doing in Krishna consciousness for giving up material mundane things. That's not easy. It's very difficult to come to the stage of pure devotional service. Anya bilasata sunya jnana karmana navritam anukulyena Krishna anusilanam bhakti uttamam. No karma, no jnana, none of those things. No attachments. But as I said, cautiously approaching that mindset. We don't want to jump too quick. We want to make sure that we're stable in our devotional service, practicing our sadhana very carefully, chanting the holy names. It's not that easy, but it's the key that opens the door to pure devotional service. So I was looking at some different statements or references to this effect to help us have a nice discussion. And in the first canto, 12th chapter, text 25, it talks about Bali Maharaj giving up everything. So we know that pastime, that he was willing to give up everything for the sake of the Lord, even against his own spiritual master. So it says here, Bali Maharaj is a great authority in devotional service because he sacrificed everything to please the Lord and relinquished the connection of his so-called spiritual master who obstructed him on the path of risking everything for the service of the Lord. The highest perfection of religious life is to attain to the stage of unqualified devotional service to the Lord without any cause or without being obstructed by any kind of worldly obligation. Bali Maharaj was determined to give up everything for the satisfaction of the Lord. And he did not care for any obstruction whatsoever. He is the grandson of Prahlad Maharaj, another authority in the devotional service of the Lord. So he was determined to give up everything. It's not that, it happens automatically, but we have to have some determination. And that determination, if we understand the goal of Krishna consciousness, prema pum artha mahan, pum artha. Artha meaning benefit, pum meaning the supreme. So the greatest benefit that we can achieve is the love of God. Getting there, as I said, is not easy, so we have to be determined. Just like anything in life, if you want to be successful, you have to have a certain degree of determination. Those of you who might have degrees from various universities, you know how difficult it might have been, but you had your mind fixed on the goal. Sometimes they use this phrase, keep your eye on the prize. So what is that prize? Depends on what your endeavor might be: money, position, power. And of course, in Krishna consciousness, we have to be careful not to be motivated by those things. I saw a really nice letter from Srila Prabhupada this morning with reference to, it's very interesting, paying salaries to devotees. Actually, Prabhupada was addressing that issue. And he said, of course, there's no problem. I can pay whatever you need, because one devotee wanted to be paid for his translation work that he was doing in India for Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada said, no problem. We have money, we can pay, but that should not be the motivation. He was discouraging this devotee from having that motivation. In other words, that I cannot do this service unless I get paid. And then Prabhupada said, I have many, especially mentioned Western disciples, and they come from millionaire families, very rich families, very successful families. They have given up everything. And he said, they're eating some rice on the floor and sleeping on the cold floor, giving up everything to serve, which I found very interesting. That when you're convinced about the goal, if we're convinced that we want love of Godhead because of everything we've heard, also that's important. Hearing and chanting, hearing the glories of the Lord, hearing the glories of his devotees, because we don't have the conscious experience of that level of awareness, but it's there being described. So now we have to have faith in what we're hearing in the association of devotees. That faith increases in the association of devotees by hearing about the glories of the Lord. So then we become convinced of the destination, the goal of Krishna consciousness. Of course, we can always refer back to Srila Prabhupada. We can look at his life, look at his example, as we were discussing in Harrisburg on Sunday about Srila Prabhupada. And devotees were reflecting on Srila Prabhupada. So as we are convinced about him, especially by hearing about Srila Prabhupada from his disciples who had the great fortune of being in his presence, and in some cases being instructed by him. So then we begin to have that faith. So there's another nice reference here in the Chaitanya, teachings of Lord Chaitanya, attachment for the Lord, devotional service and attachment. And it goes like this: as stated in the Narada Pancharatra, I'll skip the Sanskrit, when one is firmly convinced that Vishnu is the only object of love and worship, and that there is no one else, not even a demigod worthy of receiving devotional service, one is said to feel intimacy in his loving relationship with God. This is the conclusion of such personalities as Bhishma, Prahlad, Uddhava, and Narada. If, due to some righteous activities which provoke devotional service, one acquires some faith, one takes shelter of the good association of pure devotees and is influenced by their service attitude. So let's take a look at that part. Very interesting phrasing. Prabhupada says that which provoke, I like the word provoke devotional service. If due to some righteous activities, so righteous activities, devotional activities, and they provoke devotional service, then one acquires some faith. So we come to Krishna consciousness with a certain amount of faith, adal shraddha sadhu sangha. So we have some initial faith that brought us here, that either by meeting a devotee, receiving one of Srila Prabhupada's books, coming to a festival, and we thought, oh, that looks very interesting, depending on the stage in our life. We come into the association of devotees. By their service attitude, by their commitment, by their determination, we become attracted. I remember a statement by Sasrup Maharaj. He said that Srila Prabhupada single-handedly maintained the faith of the devotees in ISKCON. Now, I know we all feel that, we're strong to a certain degree, we're chanting our rounds, we're doing service, but most of us, if we're sincere, we will admit that we've had struggles in our Krishna consciousness. So Sasrup Maharaj is saying that Prabhupada, by his example, by his, Yat Yadacharati Shrestha, by setting that example, our faith was attached to his faith. I don't know how much faith I actually had in the beginning. I had some in order to come to the temple. But the more I heard about Srila Prabhupada and seeing the examples of some of his disciples, my God brothers and God sisters, I was convinced that this is worth the endeavor. This is worth sacrificing and pursuing. Just like in the mundane world, we see some person, might be a musician, might be a politician, could be any person in society that we become attracted to where they are. And we'd like to get to that platform. So they normally say, you associate with those persons that you want to imbibe or acquire some of that motivation, those qualities. Like Prabhupada says, if you want to be successful in business, you hang out with business people. You want to be successful in the medical field, you hang out with people who do that. You want to be Krishna conscious, it makes sense that you associate with devotees, and especially those devotees who are determined to succeed in Krishna consciousness. As I said, it's not easy. We have to get that determination. And we don't necessarily have it in the beginning, but we see it in others. We see someone else who's determined to chant their rounds nicely, determined to get up early in the morning and do their devotional service. Even if they have so many other obligations, they make whatever adjustments they have to so they can do that. So then we become convinced. So then it goes on. Then he develops attachment for hearing and chanting, which is extremely important. Hearing and chanting, Shravanam Kirtanam. And the more we do that, and we focus, as Prabhupada says in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita in the first purport, studying scrutinizingly Srila Prabhupada's books and other writings, carefully hearing and chanting. Also it mentions in the Nectar of Instruction that by carefully chanting the sweet names of the Lord every day, carefully chanting, that taste naturally develops within us. But we have to have faith in that process. By developing hearing and chanting, one can advance further and further in regulative devotional service to the Supreme Lord. As one so advances, his misgivings about devotional service and his attraction to the material world proportionately diminish. Again, as one advances, his misgivings about devotional service and his attraction to the material world proportionately diminish. That means that as we practice this devotional service, we start to lose these attachments. What is that verse? Bhagavatam. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayajya Subhairagyam Jnanam Chayadhaitika. By rendering service to the personality of Godhead Vasudeva, one develops, he gets causeless devotional service, attachment, and knowledge. By sincerely serving the Lord helps us through that process of devotional service, and we gradually lose our attachments to the material world. They diminish, and it says proportionately diminish. That means based on our devotional service, these attachments go down. That signals to us that my attachments are steadily there, or my attachments are increasing because my practice is not good. My devotional practice is not on point. And it mentions here about sadhana regulative devotional service. So we do it nicely, consciously, bhajitam pritipurvakam, with a loving mood. Then proportionately, those things that are holding us back, which we have identified as not being productive in our spiritual life, sex desire, running after money, even within the scope of the Krishna consciousness movement, trying to get certain positions, trying to get respect, all those things are dangerous for our spiritual practice. So as we follow the regulative process of devotional service, proportionately they diminish. So we can have faith in that. It doesn't matter how much we're struggling. And we know that we're having struggles. But if we have faith in the process and the end result, then we're willing to endure the pain of that suffering. And as we make advancement, we realize that those things that are holding us back, those distractions, by the grace of the Lord, causelessly, they will fall away. And we have to pay attention. But we can't simultaneously try to put out a fire by putting more fuel on the fire. We have to begin to cut back on our meditation on material life. Although, as described in this purport, we're not going to be neglectful to our material life and our material body. And I have a verse I want to share with you in a minute in relationship to that. So a little bit more. By advancing in hearing and chanting, a devotee becomes more firmly fixed in his faith. By advancing in hearing and chanting. See the emphasis being put on hearing and chanting, something practical. It is mystical, but it's practical. We can hear and chant. We can read Prabhupada's books. Whether we understand them completely or not is not the issue. We can read them. We can hear. We can listen to Prabhupada's voice. We can hear from other devotees about the glories of Krishna consciousness. By advancing in hearing and chanting, a devotee becomes more firmly fixed in his faith. Gradually, he develops a taste for devotional service, and that taste gradually develops into attachment for Krishna. So the verse that we're reading here, that is called firm attachment to Lord Krishna. It is spotlessly pure, like a clean cloth that has no stain, referring to the gopis' mood, willing to give up everything for Krishna. So that kind of attachment develops. When that attachment becomes pure, it exhibits two characteristics of bhava, emotion, and rati, affection. When rati increases, it is called love of God or love of Godhead. Love of Godhead is the ultimate goal of human life. And there's actually another section that Prabhupada gives, a little bit long, so I won't go through it, but it's the same concept, that gradual development. But I go back to my initial point, meaning that we have to have faith in the goal of Krishna consciousness. I mentioned that the other day, that I have never been to Hawaii. I've never been to so many places, but I've heard so much about them. I've seen so much information about them. I might develop attachment or attraction to want to go to that place and see it, to experience it. And that's not unnatural. It's like in the pastime in the Krishna book. I believe it's the Agasura pastime, where Krishna wanted to go and see some more beautiful things, Krishna himself, some more glorious things of his creation. He wanted to see those things. So that tendency to want to see things or experience something is not unnatural. And it is increased and enhanced by hearing and chanting about it. Your faith in that place or thing that you've never touched or seen, it's increased by hearing and chanting. So it's natural that if we hear and chant about Krishna and the spiritual world, we'll become progressively more attracted to it. And that attraction will nullify, cause to be diminished our attraction to the material world. But we have to have faith in that whole process. So now the other point I really want to get to, so we can have a discussion as well, is the other point here at the end of the purport, where Srila Prabhupada says, we should be prepared to do anything and everything to please the Lord, even at the risk of violating the Vedic principles or ethical laws. Now, luckily for us, Srila Prabhupada clarifies it. That is the standard of love of Godhead. Such activities in pure love of Godhead are as spotless as white linen that has been completely washed. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur warns us in this connection that we should not mistakenly think that the idea of giving up everything implies the renunciation of duties necessary in relationship or relation to the body and mind. Even such duties are not sense gratification if they are undertaken in a spirit of service to Krishna. So what I found, or what I have found over the years, is some devotees will come to a point where they'll say, I don't really care, I can die, my health, I don't care, I just want to focus on Krishna. And that sounds reasonable. But let me give you a verse here from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. 10th canto, 1st chapter, text 48. Mrityur buddhi mata poyo yavat buddhi balodayam yad yasho na nivarteta na parado sti dehina. And this verse is really, when I came across it, it really touched me very deeply, and I want to share it with you. This is the translation, as long as he has intelligence and bodily strength, an intelligent person must try to avoid death. This is the duty of every embodied person. But if death cannot be avoided in spite of one's endeavors, a person facing death commits no offense. Purport. It is natural for a person facing untimely death to try his best to save himself. Now, this is in relationship to Vasudeva trying to save Devaki from her brother trying to kill her. So this is the mindset that he had to adopt. Although he's devotee of Krishna and Krishna's in charge of everything, destiny is there, but still he exhibited this mood of do whatever you can to stay alive. Like he convinced Kamsa, don't kill my sister, don't kill your sister at this wonderful time. And in the future, if they're children, I will give them to you. Don't do it. He was using his intelligence to protect his wife. This is one's duty. What is that duty? Try to save yourself. Although death is sure, everyone should try to avoid it and not meet death without opposition, because every living soul is by nature eternal. Because death is a punishment imposed in the condemned life of material existence. The Vedic culture is based on avoiding death. Taktva deham purna janma naiti. Everyone should try to avoid death and rebirth by cultivating spiritual life, and should not submit to death without struggling to survive. One who is not trying to stop death is not an intelligent human being. Because Devaki was face to face with imminent death, it was Vasudeva's duty to save her, as he was trying his best to do. He therefore considered another way to approach Kamsa so that Devaki would be saved. So when I came across this verse, when I thought about it, it empowered me to a certain degree that I should do everything I can to take care of what Krishna has given me, this physical body. For what purpose? So I can serve Srila Prabhupada. I mean, living a long life for sense gratification has no real value. But if we want to live a healthy life, physically healthy life, mentally stable life, for the service of Srila Prabhupada, there's no harm there. But if we try our best and we can't do it, then Prabhupada says there's no loss. Or actually the verse says that. But if death cannot be avoided in spite of one's endeavors, a person facing death commits no offense. But we should endeavor to do that. So that was the last point that was mentioned in the purport. As Prabhupada is saying, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is warning us in this connection. We should not mistakenly think that the idea of giving up everything implies a renunciation of duties necessary in relationship specifically to the body and the mind. Those things have to be kept in order, just like your car. We all know if you don't maintain it, as they say, change the oil, change the fluids, regular maintenance, it will deteriorate faster. I was talking to Vishnu Gadadi when we were driving to Harrisburg. And I asked him, how long have you had this car? He told me, I can't remember, maybe 2008 or 9 or whatever. I said, have you done any service on it? He said, it runs fine. It runs perfectly. And it's amazing. Nice car, going so nicely, but being very careful. So our body can go on for some time if we take care of it. Conversely, if we don't take care of it, it will diminish faster. Or, yes. And Prabhupada uses the term untimely death. That means that this dying is going to happen. Every person has to die, but something is there, untimely death. So we have to think about that. We don't want to die untimely, unnecessarily. We want to be able to serve Srila Prabhupada, serve his mission, develop our love of Krishna for as long as we can. But if we can't, then we let go by Krishna's grace. My dear godbrother who passed away recently, Charudeshna, he went through a very difficult time at the end of his life, but he tried his best. He tried to take a little something, little food. I would go see him every day, and he was trying his humble best, trying to remember Srila Prabhupada, trying to chant, doing everything he can to stay with us. By Krishna's grace, he stayed during that period. He stayed with us long enough to again inspire devotees. It was one day that we were there at his facility, and all the brahmacharis that came, the ones that are in Atlanta doing all the book distribution, about 30 or 40 of them, plus the Matajis, all piled into his room. It was amazing. All these devotees, and the people in the care facility were like, who is this man? That all these people are here. Who is this man? And then the evening that they all came, they made a vow to Chardeshna. They said, our marathon this year will be dedicated to Charudeshna Prabhu. And I saw Chardeshna smile. By staying in that body a little bit longer, he inspired a room full of devotees to go deeper into preaching and service. And I was recently at their center, and again they spoke about it was the biggest marathon they've ever done, dedicated to Charudeshna, because Charudeshna was physically there just to wave his hand a little bit and inspire them. So again, as long as we have intelligence, how does the verse say? As long as he has intelligence and bodily strength, an intelligent person must try to avoid death. And again, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, as Prabhupada quotes in the purport, he warns us in this connection that we should not mistakenly think that the idea of giving up everything implies renunciation of duties necessary in relation to the body. Very specific. Duties necessary in relationship to the body and mind. So, the last statement, even such duties are not sense gratification. That means if you're trying to take care of yourself, whatever, taking some natural products, doing some exercise or yoga, whatever you're doing, sometimes devotees say, that's Maya. That's just Maya, you're just fighting against the inevitable. That's not what's being said here by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, by the verse in the Bhagavatam, and by Srila Prabhupada. We should try our best. But such duties, taking care of your body for serving Krishna, they're not sense gratification if they're undertaken in a spirit of service to Krishna. So we have to meditate. I'm taking care of my body as a service to Krishna. Why? Because the body doesn't belong to me. Body belongs to Krishna. And he's given me temporary residency, so-called ownership of this body. So because it doesn't belong to me, it belongs to Krishna, I should take care of it. Just like I was saying Sunday at Harrisburg, how beautiful the temple is. So I know your management is good because it's so clean and so nice and devotees are so wonderful. It was just a beautiful experience. The temple room is absolutely beautiful. The altar is just, I still think about your altar, the beautiful white columns and the gold trim and how beautiful Gaurnitai is there. So if your health is not there, it's hard to take care of that. Even our dear Parikshit Prabhu, physically struggling, but still, I mentioned Sunday, where's your keyboard? And he arranged and went back and got the keyboard, brought it there, and him and Vishnu Gadar were doing the kirtan together. It was absolutely amazing. But we're not young men, but still, whatever strength we have left, we want to use it in Krishna's service. So I saw you struggling, Parikshit Prabhu, but it was so beautiful. So nice. So now I'm even more inspired. What is my complaint? I have this little pain, that little pain. So what? Let me try to figure out how to take care of it so I can continue to do what? Try to help devotees. Try to spread the holy name around. As long as we have life, try to spread the holy name around. And please help me, the Prabhupada disciple Mataji who was there on Sunday. What was her name again? Parikshit Prabhu?
Mother Vedangi.
Vedangi. And she had a cane just like you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, a cane.
But when she spoke, oh my God, the whole sky opened up. Her glories of Srila Prabhupada. Vadangi, I have to remember that. So those are the examples. I'm inspired when I see those examples, like my dear godbrother, Jai Pataka Maharaj, and we all know what he's going through. But almost every day, no matter where he is, he's still trying to inspire devotees. Even some people might subtly try to criticize him. Okay, fine, no problem. It doesn't faze him. He just wants to keep inspiring the devotees. So if that's our motivation, Krishna may give us a little more time to be in this world to serve. So again, I really appreciate how Srila Prabhupada is clarifying this for us. And again, this verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, if you want to take a reference, Srimad Bhagavatam 10:148. As long as he has intelligence and bodily strength, an intelligent person must try to avoid death. So I'm going to stop there and see if there are any additional comments or thoughts or reflections. And thank you for allowing me to be here with all of you today. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Very wonderful lecture, and also a reminder that we're in the material world and to serve. It takes this material body to do it. And the reference that you gave is what, Bhagavatam 10:148.
Yes.
I think that's what you wrote, yeah. 10:148. I'm going to put it in the chat section so that devotees can do that. In the meantime, devotees, if you want to unmute yourself, please do. Vishnu Gadapa was already raised his hand. So Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All good.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
couple of one comment, one question.
Sure.
The Srimad Bhagavatam verse that you quoted, 10:148. It's interesting to note that was Srila Prabhupada, dictated that while he was in Vrindavan in his last days.
Yes.
So it's he was practically going through those times at that time when he wrote that, or he dictated that purport, and so he was also going through that fight for Krishna at that time, for to maintain the body for Krishna service. Yeah.
Wow.
And then you mentioned about things like devotees might do some exercise or yoga or other things, and of course in some temples they have regular classes on doing hatha yoga and things like that. Sometimes they have Ayurvedic clinics and things. So what would be your or Srila Prabhupada's guidance on those issues going on or as part of a temple?
It's a tough one because you're absolutely correct. Some temples do that under the pretense of attracting people. Pretense, and I say that from what I've seen over the years, most of those people who come for that purpose don't end up being regular devotees. I've seen that so many times. So if the purpose is to attract people to become devotees, now, historically speaking, for myself, and I'm sure for you as well, Vishnu, we just never had that in our temple experience. Yoga classes, or even sometimes occasionally you would bring someone in for like Ayurvedic or this or that, but not like a regular program. I just don't have that experience. So I wouldn't personally institute something like that in terms of where I might be responsible for a temple. Because to me, a temple, the attraction is chanting Hare Krishna, Prasadam, deity worship, festivals. It's good enough. I mean, it made devotees for all these years without these additional kinds of things. But I think sometimes devotees are thinking, no, but this would be more attractive. This is a modern age, and this will be more attractive. I don't necessarily agree with the more attractive concept, although being a musician and preacher as well, sometimes I'll create some music that's attractive to a certain genre that people might like it this way, that way. But I don't do it in terms of the kirtan. I don't do it in terms of those regular like Harinam activities. That's just like straight up as it is. But in certain circumstances, maybe. Like I work with an organization, Vedic Friends Association, and we're starting a series of cooking classes, plant-based cooking classes in a very heavily urban environment. But whenever, because I'm the president, I have to facilitate different things, but I always have Prabhupada's books. And I always have devotees there preaching to those people. So it's a nice combination. But I'm just saying, in reference to the temple facility, I personally feel that it should be specifically dedicated to straight Krishna consciousness. And I'm sure devotees have different opinions about that, but that's, since you asked me, Vishnugadar, that's my honest opinion. The temple should just be simple, pure, straight devotional activities.
Do you have any references from
Srila
Srila
Prabhupada?
Prabhupada about that?
I can't think of any right offhand. I can probably research and find them. If you have some, it'd be wonderful if you can share that. I just can't think of one right this second.
I know that many people would approach Srila Prabhupada with an idea to become a doctor or just and what would Srila Prabhupada respond?
I'm sure, like I don't know.
Usually he would say, I know there's so many doctors. Better to become Krishna conscious. That's his standard response. But there might be some few exceptions here or there.
Yeah.
And as far as additional programs in the temple, what I recall that Srila Prabhupada encouraged was reading rooms in restaurants, prasadam restaurants. And interesting, we were talking about that at a program in Delaware. Mukunda Datta Prabhu was there, who was a devotee, Prabhupada disciple, and he lived in Dallas. And so he was in Dallas. They have a wonderful prasadam restaurant there. And, he would notice because there would be regular people coming to that restaurant for prasadam. They wouldn't go in the temple room. They wouldn't chant, but they just be attending the restaurant. And so then he went to India. And then, many years later, he came back to Dallas. And there he saw in the treasury, the person in the treasury was a devotee that was one of the people that came to the restaurant. And then he went to the Sankirtan leader. Oh, that was one of the other people that used to come to the restaurant. So as the regulars. So, that as far as I understand it, that those were Prabhupada's, encouragements, and other things he didn't encourage. Not that it can't be done outside.
Yeah.
It's like there are people who have yoga studios in their, that's their business. That's okay. But as far as the temple basic programs, it's not something that Srila Prabhupada encouraged, as far as I understand it. He could have done it. He could have said, okay, let's have a yoga classes at the temple, once every, we're doing classes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So on Tuesday and Thursday, let's do some hatha yoga.
Yeah.
I don't think he ever did that. I don't know any instance when he did that. It's not that you can't do that, for your physical development of your physical body, but that's not one of our main functions, as far as I know, as far as my understanding is. What do you think?
No, I 100% agree. I'd like to hear some other devotees' comments about that, if anyone would be willing to share some thoughts on that, because it's a very important topic. So, yes, go ahead, Prabhu. Preach it.
Hare Krishna. Please step on with obeisance. It's all glory to God. But thank you for the class and thank you for this discussion about other things that could be done. And you mentioned what happened. I always like to hear, at that time what your Papa's comments were about.
I turned off the camera. You can come in.
Okay.
And, go ahead.
And what he did also. What was crossing my mind when you were speaking, you and Vishigadapu were speaking about this, was, all right, so you bring in this, and on the one hand, you think, oh, that may attract devotees, but on the other hand, it might also get people to be a little bit split out a little bit. They may say, oh, well, Hatha Yoga is the reason I'll stay in the temple because I finally got it. That's something I love very much, and Adi doing it, therefore I'll stay. That may be one thing. And then you ask, okay, what if it stops? Then are they going to go away? In other words, this is a long way of just saying the same things that I agree with you, that some things we have to be careful where we do them. The temple, I think, just like I don't have to repeat what you just said, it is focused on consciousness, and the Krishna consciousness activities should be foremost in the temple, and maybe those kind of other things could be arranged by a devotee outside of the temple in a different location, and maybe people go there and get whatever benefit they can and associate there too. That would be good.
Done.
But the temple's focus should be on it. Otherwise, Hatha Yoga comes, then what else comes? Then what else comes? Then what else comes? And the thing it's a hodgepodge, and it wasn't meant to be that way. And then we have to go back trying to undo what we've done. And so maybe just stay with Krishna consciousness activities only. Hare Krishna.
Haribol. Anyone else? Please share your thoughts if you have some thoughts on this. Yeah, I mean, there's so many times. I remember so many times in Atlanta, different ideas would pop up to try this and try that. But like Vishnu Gadar just said about the Dallas example and the restaurant. I remember times when we had like dinner programs in Atlanta. And I started one dinner program with one bhakta. We were getting 30, 40 people every night in this little small room. And 3 or 4 of those people got initiated. And I would go on Harinam and I gave out a little, it looked like a $5 bill that a devotee had drew it, right? And he had Abraham Lincoln with Tilak. So we would hand it out and say, this is valid for a meal worth $5 at the Hare Krishna temple. And the place was filling up. They would come in and say, is this still valid? Yeah, come on in, come on in. And the devotees would receive them and talk with them and encourage them gradually, intentionally exposing them to deeper and deeper aspects of Krishna consciousness, and people would become devotees. So like that, yes. But turning the temple into a yoga center, I don't see that personally. Not that you can't do it. Pretty much you can do what you want. But to be the most effective, and realizing that that one visit that person has could be that person's last visit in their life, period. And all you gave them was that exposure when you could have given them Krishna. So even if you're doing that, like say yoga or whatever it might be, Prasadam has to be part of that. Prabhupada's books have to be part of that. Otherwise, it's in a sense kind of useless. It's not useless to take care of your body. We just read that. It's not useless. But the temple is a place to elevate people to Krishna consciousness. So how well are we doing that in these kind of creative programs? Like I'm a musician. I've been doing music for Krishna since 1975, recorded albums for Krishna. Luckily, from what we did was very simple and pure. People became devotees from that music. Western music, guitars, everything. But the lyrics, I remember one time we were playing at a local venue in Atlanta. And this young lady came up and said, who writes your lyrics? They're so moving, so touching. Because we wrote it in a spirit of devotional service. But we didn't use the temple like a nightclub, performance facility. But that's not saying devotees can't do creative things. Don't get it twisted or don't get it wrong. But I think what I'm hearing from Vishnu Gadar, from Parikshit Prabhu, and what I feel myself is that the temple is the place to make devotees directly as much as possible. Just leave it for that purpose. So those are my thoughts.
I'm also thinking that Prasadam, especially when devotees organize that in temples, that definitely is advantageous because Prasadam is a secret weapon to Krishna consciousness. It is part of our ammunition to get people interested in Krishna consciousness. So that we do food for life, literally. Again, Prasadam distribution. So it is that is going to be very beneficial if a temple organizes something.
Well, now that you said that, when this class is over, the first thing I'm going to do is go finish up my cheesecake that your daughter gave me. I was waiting for your courtesy to finish so I can text. It was so wonderful. So you're absolutely, I mean, I'm attached to coming to Harrisburg now because of the devotees, the kirtan, the prasadam. You're just, it's amazing. Anybody would be
That's
attracted
wonderful.
to the Harrisburg Temple. That's why Vishnu Gudaprabhu and myself are thinking, how can we help you and your efforts to attract more people? I spent hours yesterday looking at videos of Harrisburg, downtown Harrisburg, the river thing and the this, and I'm just trying to figure it out, you know. What can, and Vishnu
Mm.
Guru has already reached out to a devotee to come there. You have such an amazing facility and community. It's just amazing to me. So if we use that facility that you already have it.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful deities, beautiful temple room, wonderful dining hall, beautiful yards. We just have to get as many people as we can to come and see it and experience. And also, as Vishnu Gada pointed out, the loving mood of the devotees there that carried all the way up until we were leaving. We just felt like we don't want to leave. So much love. And that mood comes from you and your wife and your daughters. It's just beautiful. So let us just keep doing that. Another example is those brahmacharis in Atlanta with Bhakti Vikash Maharaj. They have made over 20 new devotees, half of which are already initiated within a year and a half. How are they
Wow.
doing it? Because they just do simple. Now, you know, there's little controversies here and there. Like sometimes people say they're too aggressive, but whatever. They're making devotees by just doing the simple, straight Krishna conscious activities. Palena Parichayate, you judge by the result. A lot of temples are saying we don't have any devotees. Well, maybe you're not doing enough preaching. They're devoted. I was just a person standing on the street corner. Someone came to me and preached to me. I'm still here so many years later. There's many people out there. So again, just in conclusion from me, let's use the temple as Prabhupada guided us while he was here for preaching Krishna consciousness, spiritual environment.
Right. Thank you very much. And she is handling another class at the same time, unfortunately.
No problem.
Chandamali Swami class. Yeah, that's why it's not on here. But I'll definitely let her know the suggestions in the comments that you brought up. Thank you very much. It's all the mercy of Guru and Gauranga. And, yeah, and your own God family members, disciples of Srila Prabhupada. So we go on like that, Hare Krishna. We
Haribol.
was, yeah. Any other comments on the Buddhist? Any other comments or questions or takeaways? If not, then thank you very much for Buddhist for coming on, for you giving class, and we should get that for Buddhist input. This is all very inspiring. We got it twice now. We got it Sunday in person, and now we got it online too. So the word is, we're all still fair at the beginning of the week, have the rest of the week. Krishna conscious, make it Krishna conscious. It's the only way to do it. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Vivascha
Vanchakapaturu
kripa
Kripa
sindhu
Sindri
varevacha
Evacha
patitanam
Patitanam
pavanebhyo
Pavanebhyo
Vaishnavi
Vaishnavibhyo
Guru.
Namo
All glories to
Shiropa
Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Shiropa Ki
Hare Krishna.
Jai Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna.
Jai Hare Krishna